The room was well adorned. The woven rugs and intricate tapestries decorated the space where an older gentleman resided. As he sat there and orated the wonders he saw, another man across him sat and scribed away meticulously. They did this for an entire year to create the Rihla, one of the most vivid accounts of the 14th century Islamic world. Speaking was, of course, Ibn Battuta, the greatest traveler the world has ever known. For nearly 3 decades, Ibn Battuta journeyed across a staggering 75,000 miles. However, as astonishing as these travels were, his romantic escapades were equally, if not more, astounding. Born in the year 1304 in Tangier, Morocco, Ibn Battuta hailed from a family of esteemed Islamic jurists known for their profound understanding of Islamic law. Despite his lineage, however, Ibn Battuta's early years were plagued with a sense of longing to traverse the world, not just to learn, but to witness life beyond his homeland. And that was why, in the year 1325, at just the age of 21, Ibn Battuta began exploring the world. He embarked on his first major journey, the Hajj, the religious pilgrimage to the holy city of Mecca. Ibn Battuta's desire to travel was intense. He resigned to tear himself away from his friends and parents, something he felt greatly sorrowful about. On his way to Mecca, he took the opportunity to enrich his knowledge of Islamic law, planning to visit renowned Islamic scholars, teachers, and libraries along the route, given the absence of higher educational institutions in his hometown. His thirst for knowledge was as strong as his yearning for adventure. Ibn Battuta's journey began alone, with no companion or caravan to accompany him. This was naturally dangerous, as roads were not only physically challenging, but also posed the threat of being attacked by lurking bandits. Ibn Battuta experienced extreme weather conditions, ranging from searing heat during the day to chilling cold at night. On one occasion, early on in his journey, Ibn Battuta fell ill with a severe fever, which could have been due to the harsh weather conditions, poor sanitation, lack of clean water, or the various diseases that were common during those times, such as malaria or typhoid. His fever was so intense that it impaired his ability to stay upright on his donkey. In a desperate move to keep going, he tied himself to the saddle to prevent falling off as he journeyed on. Over time, Ibn Battuta's adventures became as much about personal connections as they were about exploration. His travels took him to many different lands, each with its own unique customs and traditions. He didn't just observe these cultures, he actively participated in them, and one way he did this was by marrying and forming relationships with local women. These relationships provided him with companionship, cultural insight, and occasionally influential connections. Although he projected himself as a traditional Muslim, the inclusion of his sexual experiences in the Rihla did the opposite, as it was unseen in other contemporary works. Ibn Battuta's love life was a multifaceted mosaic that provided an interesting view of the 14th century audience. During his stay in Maldives, Ibn Battuta described the place as one filled with aphrodisiac foods. He recounted how he had 4 wives and several concubines, and he visited each of them daily, according to Islamic law and tradition. His narration displayed his conscious adherence to Islamic customs, even in the privacy of his life. Among his wives, he cherished and discussed a few favorites, hinting at the presence of genuine love within the contractual nature of his marriages. In the portrayal of his polygamy, Battuta reflected the socio-religious norms of his time. His multiple marriages were not only an accepted part of 14th century society, but might also have been seen as an indicator of his piety and connection to holy figures. Indeed, his meticulous adherence to Islamic law was clearly visible in the way he conducted his marriages and divorces. While some may view this as boastful or unconventional, Ibn Battuta's marriages and the careful rotation of his time with each wife served to project his commitment to treating each wife equally as prescribed by Islamic law. His divorces, too, were carefully detailed, reflecting his adherence to tradition. These divorces were not just legal obligations, but also acts of mercy, allowing his wives to remain with their families instead of undertaking dangerous journeys. In one instance, Ibn Battuta wanted to remove a woman from the island. However, she begged to be left behind, showing severe, possibly psychosomatic pains when he attempted to leave with her. Ultimately, Ibn Battuta respected her wishes and left her behind, divorcing her and possibly sparing her from a perilous journey. His decision to return her, even though it was inconvenient for him, served to showcase his adherence to Islamic law about being selfless and merciful. His time in the Maldives was not only marked by marriages, but also by the culinary and sexual influences of the local diet, particularly coconuts and fish. This was an excerpt from his writings, proving that the food there was indeed aphrodisiac. I had there myself 4 wives and concubines as well, and I used to visit all of them every day and pass the night with the wife whose turn it was, and this I continued to do the whole year and a half that I was there. This period of his life underlined Ibn Battuta's inclination to immerse himself in local cultures and experiences. Despite his playboy nature, Ibn Battuta's marriages were not just love affairs, but strategic alliances that facilitated his journey and extended his network. These unions were often accompanied with detailed dowry agreements reflecting the transactional nature of marriages at the time. The women's social positions were often beneficial to Ibn Battuta's standing. However, the opposite was also true, such as his marriage in Delhi, which led to his eventual flight from the Sultan's court due to his wife's familial ties to rebels. Ibn Battuta's marriages and divorces were a blend of the contractual and the emotional. He often expressed his love for his wives, but his accounts did not overly romanticize these relationships. His accounts also shed light on the status and treatment of women in his time. His references to his mother were unusual, indicating a high regard for her, a departure from the norm. The recounting of his attempts to claim his son from the Maldives, despite the mother's protest, revealed the patriarchal legal system. Yet his decision to leave his child with the mother indicated a certain respect for her wishes. Ibn Battuta's dealings with his concubines highlighted another side of his love life. He often mentioned them casually, showing little regret when they faced dangers on his journeys. He also didn't hide his favoritism among them, reflecting the accepted views on concubines and sexual slavery in his time. For instance, he offhandedly mentioned how one of his slave girls drowned crossing a river, and another, who was pregnant, died in a shipwreck. In his writings, Ibn Battuta showed clear favoritism. When one boat sank, he chose to save one concubine he was particularly fond of and left another trailing behind with a rope. Traveling with several slave girls, Ibn Battuta was open about his sexual relations with them. His casual mention of a slave carrying his child hinted at the social norm of his time. It was acceptable for a man to be married to 4 women while also sleeping with multiple concubines. However, his concern for a pregnant concubine showed that he was not completely indifferent to their welfare. Through his accounts, Ibn Battuta demonstrated his unconventional, at least by modern standards, relationships with women. After spending almost 30 years traveling, Ibn Battuta finally reached China and decided to return to Tangier, Morocco in 1349. At this time, Ibn Battuta's parents had already passed, so he only remained for a short while before going to Spain. Eventually, he returned to Morocco for good in 1354. The country's sultan ordered him to compile his stories in a travelogue at the time, prompting him to finally write the Rila. Despite not having journals during his adventures, Ibn Battuta orated a detailed account of his adventures all over the known world. He was helped by a scribe named Ibn Juzai. Strangely, after completing the Rila, Ibn Battuta disappeared from the historical records. Some believed he worked as a judge in Morocco and lived the rest of his life quietly, dying in 1368. But there is no confirmation of this. Still, it was possible that the great traveler finally found contentment staying in the same place he had departed from when he was still a young man, his hometown.